Will auto sales recover this year? Now this is Thoughtful. Hello, I'm Trevor Lai in Shanghai. Recently on Thoughtful China, we looked at China's car market. That episode included an interview with Nigel Harris, VP of Ford's China Distribution Operations. This week, we're sharing an extended version of that interview. We hope you enjoy it. Nigel, is China's car market headed for a big speed bump?
No, I don't think so, Trevor. If you look at the last 2 or 3 years, the growth has been enormous. It's been between 20 and 30%. So the industry's been traveling, let's say, at 200 miles per hour. It's been going flat out. This year, the growth is going to be around 6%. And so on that basis, it's coming back to like 150 miles per hour. It's still growth, but not massive. It's a very gradual reduction.
So in other words, there may be a speed bump, but there's still speed.
Yeah, exactly right.
Now, Ford has done relatively well. Between January and October this year, you've sold over 426,000 cars versus just under 400,000 last year. What do you attribute the success to?
We're actually very happy. We've had a strong year. 2 key reasons. Obviously, great products. Products like the Focus and the Mondeo are doing incredibly well in the marketplace. People are appreciating the vehicles for what they are. Probably what a lot of people don't realise is another key element of our success is people. Buying a car in China is very high involvement for our customers. And when they buy a car, they've got to buy a car off people that they trust. And so when they come into a Ford dealership, they need to be able to develop a relationship with those people in the Ford dealership so they can feel confident that when they buy a car and when they own a car, there's always going to be someone there, someone behind the Ford Oval that will say, yes, I will always look after you. I think we're doing that particularly well. We have very, very strong people in our dealerships, and that's helping us.
But from a training perspective, how do you train the frontline staff to build that trust?
Good question. We've got an organisation that's called Chang'an Ford University, and that's with our Chang'an Ford joint venture. And literally it's set up as a university. On the board are dealers and people from Chang'an Ford, and they establish a curriculum every year. They basically make sure people reach certain levels of certification. There's recognition in terms of when they reach certain levels of technical excellence based on either an academic set and performance, i.e. you can teach someone how to sell a car or to service a car, but they've also got to demonstrate that in their job as well. So we have in the vicinity of 45 to 50 people at any one point in time in that JV training all over the country to all 440 dealerships that we have.
Well, we've actually spoken to a lot of brands about the importance of training. So it's interesting that your brand has actually invested in this already. But was this something that after the joint venture you discovered was an issue and therefore built up the education process and built this university, or vice versa?
There are some unique challenges in China. The market here is still relatively immature in terms of the depth of experience. There's lots of talent, but the experience just isn't there. So we have had to put more emphasis onto training to make sure that we can accelerate people's knowledge and skill faster than what you'd see in other markets.
Ford was an early adopter of using digital media in China, especially for youth-oriented models like the Fiesta. Where does this foresight come from? Did it come from North America and they looked at the use of internet in China and decided that that was a great place to invest, or where did that come from?
Actually, we got heavily involved in digital with the launch of Fiesta in 2009, and through most of 2008 we spent a lot of time really getting to know the customer, and we had a very clear understanding of who that customer was. It was young, between 25 and 27 years of age, male and female. The female was called May, the male was called Bibo, so we gave them names. And we actually organised customer immersion events where we actually went and sat with these people, with a typical target customer, to really understand how they lived their life, what they did, what media they consumed. And through a series of those sort of discussions, we found out that they might watch an hour of targeted based television a day, but they'd spend 4 to 5 hours on the internet. And they told us that was the medium that they consumed the most. Yes, they liked reading magazines, they watched a little bit of television, but internet was what was important to them. And that's when we made the decision that we'd go heavily into digital with Fiesta, and it worked really well.
And do you think you have good measurement metrics in place to measure the effectiveness of your digital campaigns?
Yeah, you can understand traffic and activity, right? But when you can see things like, you know, if you get a successful video up on Weibo or whatever, you can see how many views it's had. You can see some of the commentary that you get as a result, right, of those videos or of that content. But when you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, you don't really get a full flavour or understanding of what they're really thinking, right? So you can understand some basic things like how many are seeing it and what sort of penetration you're getting or depth. But to really understand how you're influencing, it's actually quite hard. It's quite hard to get those metrics. Now we've got other research that we run to try and understand favourable opinion of our brand, and you start to correlate the two things together. It's never perfect, but we get a reasonable understanding.
Are there favorite media partners that you have in China that using the internet that you find that when you put digital campaigns out there, these channels tend to get a bigger response?
Yeah, the video, certainly the video network sites are the ones that work really well, Weibo in particular. But basically when you get video and good video content onto the platforms, that seems to work very well.
Now, 3 years ago, you reportedly said that friends and family were the biggest influencers for purchasers of new vehicles. And has this changed?
No, it's still either number one or number two. We still have between 65 and 70% of all of our buyers in the industry, not just with Ford, are first-time buyers. So our customers still don't have a huge amount of experience in dealing with buying a vehicle or going to a franchise dealer to buy a vehicle. So they still rely very heavily on authentic sources for information. So friends and family is critical. They go and say, have you bought a car? What was your experience? What should I do? Digital is still really important because they see that as an authentic, independent way of getting information.
Meaning that they'll search online and read reviews and things like that.
And they'll read our content, you know, so they'll have a look at our websites and understand that, but then they'll actually go on and you know, find out from buying groups or from others, from blogs, just to see what they're saying about our brand or a nameplate, Fiesta, Focus, Mondeo, to really get an understanding. They might engage in some activity to ask some questions, but they use that a lot, more so than where I've seen anywhere else in the world.
Well, in North America, there's a huge network of, you would say, independent car reviewers and bloggers, and there's a very mature set of experts that consumers can go online and they can find thousands and thousands of them. You know, do you think in China yet that there's such a large pool, or is there really a few sources they go to, and then everyone else is, you know, perhaps not as independent?
I think it's actually very large. When we take a vehicle into the market, we know quite a few of those independent sources for commentary, and we actually invite them, show them our product, let them get a chance to experience the product so they can write about it. So, and there's a lot of them. I mean, when we have our launches, you know, we can invite 30, 40, 50 subject matter experts to attend our launches so they can write about them. So the volume is actually very high.
Now, how much of an impact has group buying or e-commerce had on Ford sales?
Our dealers get involved in some of the group buying activities. To be honest, we don't encourage it. And the reason we don't encourage it is the concept of, if you get together as a group of 20 and go and talk to a Ford dealer or a GM dealer, a Volkswagen dealer, you can get a better deal. The concept of that's not quite right. I mean, it's not a fleet, right? And fundamentally, the idea of what we have is we should offer the same price to everybody, right? Whether you're an individual or whether you're a group of 20. So we don't actively encourage it, but our dealers are involved with it. From an e-commerce perspective, again, it depends what stage of the transaction we're in. For awareness and for swapping information and for helping customers who have bought that may want some more information about their car, we use the digital channels extensively. But for the actual purchase, coming back to what I was saying before about the trust that you've got to develop between a dealership and a customer, it's still very much a face-to-face type transaction because it's such a big purchase for a lot of people. They want to be able to sit and see that person face to face, get to know them a bit and understand it.
Well, it's very emotional. We all remember the first car that we bought. Yeah. It's extremely emotional. I'm sure it's exactly the same here for the consumers. We asked our viewers to submit some questions for you. And from LinkedIn, we got a few actually. And the first one was, how does Ford use social networking platforms to help build its brand image in China and also build its influence?
We use the social networks a lot. And we use it in a variety of different ways. Obviously, we create some content and we try and put that into the social network environment and see if it gets picked up, if it's entertaining enough for people to read it and then send it on through their friends. A good example of that was a little takeoff we did of Mythbusters around small cars and safety and how quiet small cars can be, specifically around Fiesta. And that worked really well. We also try and look at more elements where we might place our product into a social network environment so it does get picked up. One really key area that we do use it a lot is after we've sold the car, if there are concerns that come through about the car or they see a report and they're not sure about what their report is, we will actually go onto the social network and we will, as a company, respond to customers. So for example, we'll have a live 45 minutes where any customer can come to the management of the company and say, please tell us about this, we've heard about this, what do you say? And that does influence your brand, right, being accessible. So it's not just about saying here's great cars and great platforms and engines and those sort of things. It's also about having a direct relationship with those customers to say, oh gee, this happened in my car, what does it mean? And that works really well.
And so when you've done this, so you've actually executed this in the marketplace before, and have you had any significant insights coming from those conversations?
Yeah, it's you get a great response. And the more you answer, the more questions you answer, the more the questions come in.
Right.
We did it with the Fiesta last year as well when we launched a freshened Fiesta to the market. We actually launched it digitally to the media, right, to our media partners. And then we had a live Q&A digitally afterwards. And we had an hour of it. And the questions were great coming from the media. They actually asked more questions in that environment than what they do in a media press conference when we've got 200 people sitting in a room.
Another question we got from our viewers was asking about how Ford sees creativity in China, especially in how it markets its cars. So for example, do you look at areas like branded entertainment as a huge potential opportunity area to exercise more creativity?
We do, and we did look at elements like Hero Hollywood in the Fiesta zone. We've done things like we got our customers to get involved in a thing called iReporter, Fiesta iReporter, which was basically if they saw something happening in their local town or city that was cool, something happening at a club or whatever, we actually got them to video it and put it onto the Fiesta zone so other people would know, hey, this was happening in the city, go and do this sort of thing. So again, their content, what they put in was really important, right? In terms of product placement into some of the the different executions that you can see. We're working on a couple. We will do more of that, I think. Product placement in movies and TV series and those sort of things, it's well understood, it's been done for years. We will look at doing more of that in the digital environment as well. It's a good opportunity where maybe Ford is not the star of the show, but certainly the Ford vehicle or the Ford brand is a supporting character in the show.
And when you are placing it, especially in the digital world, do you worry or do you feel like you need to control the content a little bit more, or do you give complete creative freedom to whoever that media partner is and just trust that the Ford brand is in good hands?
You've always got to be very careful of your corporate reputation, right? So there's got to be parameters there. You've got to operate within a society, within a Chinese society that works. So you need to be a little bit careful. So there are parameters there. But in saying that, you know, the digital channel is the channel for people to have edgier thoughts and discussions in a safe environment. So digitally you can push the boundaries a little bit more than maybe what you'd do if it was newspaper, magazine, television, whatever.
Yeah, it's one of those double-edged swords where, you know, in a way brands have more control, they feel, over digital. Yeah. And at the same time, as soon as something digital goes up and you try to pull it, it's not like pulling a TV spot where when you've pulled it, it's gone. Once it's digital, it's gone and it's out of your hands.
Yeah, that's right.
So it can really be a runaway car.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We don't have those.
So tell us something we don't know about how Ford markets its cars in China.
That's a really good question. Something you don't know, and I'm not quite sure there's anything you don't know about the marketing of cars or products. Probably what I was talking about before in terms of the depth of work that we do around our people. Because, you know, when you look at a brand like Ford, people see the communications, right? They see your digital executions, they see, you know, broadcast media, they see print and newspaper. That's obvious, right? And that's obviously also paid for by Ford. They see and hear the articles that come through from the media, right? Which is something we don't pay for. That's the independent element of communication. That's really important, but everybody understands you have to have a strategy around that. Probably then they also see the cars on the road, right? So that's all about awareness and visibility and saying, hey, it's a great car, that must be good. I might go and have a look at that. But the last piece of it is really what I was talking about earlier, which is the people in the dealership. The face of Ford is really our dealerships and the people that operate within them. So when the customer arrives at a dealership and they see a really nice dealership, well presented, clean, they walk in the door, they're warmly greeted by professional looking people. They're then taken through a process of a selling process or a service process that's really good. That really is the connection between the brand and the customer. And that's, you know, I guess it's not as sexy to talk about, but not many people talk about it, but in actual fact, that's a huge part of our business. That's the people business.
And it's absolutely essential in brand building.
Yeah, that's right.
So we've talked a lot about what Ford will be doing more of in the future. Is there an area of marketing that you actually think you should be doing less of?
By definition, if you do more of one thing, you do less of something else, right? But certainly digital will get stronger, no doubt about it. Helping people talk to other people about our brand is something we'll do more of, right? Because as we talked about before, the influence of family and friends and independent commentary is really critical. And, you know, can we influence it? It would be nice to be able to, but in reality you can't, because people have their own opinions and they're going to share those opinions. But helping connect happy customers to other people is what we're going to do more of, right? So they can say, hey, I bought this great Ford vehicle from this great Ford dealership. You need to go and have a look at it.
So at the end of last year, media inflation hit record numbers. Is this something that has really influenced how Ford looks at spending in traditional media?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen media inflation at double digits, sometimes over 20% for the last 4 to 5 years. And that's a real concern to us. That's why to a large extent, we've gone digital. One of the reasons, 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, our digital expenditure was probably 10% of our marketing budget. This year it was 25%. It's probably going to grow in the future. It's really cost effective and it's very targeted at the people we want to talk to with specific cars and specific customers.
Thanks, Nigel. Now we'll hear from PT Black about what really appeals to Chinese car buyers.